And here we are again. High Vibe Conversations. I am your co host, Ambassador Terry, along with the illustrious.
Illustrious Linda Vettrus-Nichols.
Hello, everyone. And as you can see, we are joined with some special people. We're going to answer that question scrolling across the bottom of the screen. What do you really want? This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be interesting conversation. Linda?
Oh, that is such a conversation to be had. I remember when you had open heart surgery, and my coach was like, "Oh, well, then, okay, well, he'll be out of commission for a while. What do you want to do?" And I'm like, I have no idea. I know what I don't want to do. And she's like, okay, we'll start with that. So, yeah, that's a huge question. Steena, how about you? When you always have some unique behind the scenes ideas, if you will, when it comes to that question, what do you want?
Oh, yes, yes.
Drama.
Deep breath.
I'll get shorter.
It's interesting to think about what we want because, as you just said, the thing that we usually know is what we don't want. And it can be really easy to just focus on avoiding all of the things that we don't want instead of setting ourselves up for the things that we do want. And a lot of times our perceptions around what we desire is like things that we desire, things that we want, we usually think of as things that we don't have. So there's like that polarity where we say, I want this. And we're saying, I don't have this. Ooh. I don't have this thing. And so it's really important, I think, to watch the way that we talk about what we want and what our desires are. And the way that, we have to ask ourselves, what do I really want? Because it's kind of that you got to start with the basic language and not pick it apart too much. And once you kind of like start to dig, though, you can look at like, well, how am I talking about this thing in my life? If it's a relationship that you want, if you're always wanting it and you're always desiring it, it's kind of always keeping it a little bit out of reach instead of making it something that you will have or something that you're, taking action towards actually creating it. Right. Because when you're doing that, like when someone's going to school for a degree, like they're going to school to get the degree. Mm-hmm. That's it. They're not just sitting in a classroom wanting a degree, right? You have to like put the energy into motion with it.
Well put. Yeah. I love that. Yes.
Very good. Did you have more?
Oh, I'll let somebody else talk. I'm sure I'll have more later.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was just, wow, that's a writer downer.
Yeah.
Right? We don't do that.
Talking now,
we're present with the classroom. That's spot on. Right?
Yeah. That was just a visual that came to me because there's certain things that we feel confident that we're working towards and that we're really investing our energy into. Yeah. And those are the things we get, and those are the things that we have, and those are the things that are certain. Then there are these things that we put in another category, like, well, I want it, but then we don't really know if we can have it. So that's where also the avoiding what you don't want comes from, because a lot of times it's easier to avoid pain than it is to actually find out what feels like pleasure to us. Mm-hmm. It's also a much more individualized thing. Like there's a lot of things that all five of us here, we could say we don't want. Our list would probably be pretty similar if we're just like, what are like our top 10 things we don't want in your life, business, relationship. But then when we say, what do you want? You as an individual, everyone is going to have a very specific, unique thing that they want to create for themselves.
Yeah. Do you think it's connected to responsibility? Because if you decide what you want, now you're like responsible for getting it kind of thing too.
I do. And I think going back to the classroom example, to get a degree, we know what we need to do. We know we need to enroll in school, show up for class, pass the tests, and be awarded the degree. It's like a very cut and dry path.
Yeah.
So most of the things in life that we want are not a cut and dry path. Bless you. It's not a do A, B, C, get D, then go on to E. Like we all would love if that was the way it worked. But because it's much more unknown, it's much more dynamic, it's much more mysterious, taking that responsibility is like, I have to now prepare myself for
the unknown.
The unknown.
Yeah, right.
The complete unknown, which is way more daunting than like enrolling in a degree program.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the reflections back at you, the person. That's what I'm noticing so much with people leave corporate and, you know, step into entrepreneurship. And there's just so much self-development work that goes with it that they were able to sort of hide out in corporate. Now corporate's changing and you know, coming along too. So yeah, it's interesting. And of course, go ahead.
Oh, then you also take on the responsibility of mistakes, failures.
Yeah, right.
Errors, like all of the things that you could do wrong or, you know, misunderstand something or misstep. And I think that is a big part of it. And it's also why, like, even like, say you're trying to decide where to go to a restaurant to eat with someone else.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier if the other person will just decide.
Yeah.
Because then if the food sucks, you don't feel guilty for choosing a bad restaurant.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of things in life where we're just like, it'd be much easier if someone else could just decide what they want and then I'll just go along with it so that I don't have to have that responsibility and face potential failure or like mediocrity. I think sometimes we're more afraid of like mediocrity than we are of actual failure. Like we're afraid that it's just going to be uneventful. It's going to be not very exciting. It's not going to be great.
Right.
And
oh my God,
that feels yucky too.
So many things are popping up based on all the things you're saying right now.
Go, Chelle, go.
Oh my God. Before I forget all of them, let me try to knock off some of them. Okay. So dial it back a few minutes. A few minutes ago, you were talking about how it's easier to know what we don't want.
Right.
And sometimes we avoid that so that we don't have to, like, if we don't want pain, we avoid it. Well, then we can't work through it, right? And if we're avoiding something, we can't get to the root of like what that block is. And so I thought that was really important that you mentioned that sometimes it's easier to start with and reverse engineer what you don't want to figure out what it is, to like take away those pieces of the puzzle, to be able to focus on what really is underneath and find out what you do want. And that reminded me of a year ago, Steena, we were in a similar group conversation where you had asked us a question about what our biggest fear was. I don't know if you remember this conversation. It was part of an exercise that we did. And I want, for me, so this was the end of 2020 that we had this conversation, and it really helped me develop what I wanted to focus on for 2021, just having this conversation with you guys. And what was coming up for me at the time, the fear was rocking the boat. What happens if I make too many waves and like people don't like it and I fall overboard, I sink, whatever the thing is. Yes, all the water metaphors, because that's just me. And so my theme for 2021, like what did I really want for 2021 was to make those waves, like was to feel that fear and do it anyway, right?
Right. So, and you did.
And making those waves for me was about sparking the conversation, which, hello, we're here. We're having these conversations regularly and showing up and being consistent and like sparking those things that people don't normally talk about. People hide behind and don't have these conversations. And God knows I've been super vulnerable with like owning all the things that I've done, and good, bad, ugly, all the things. And so I leaned into feeling that fear, making those waves, but I couldn't have done that had I not addressed what I didn't want. I couldn't have done that had I not had that hard conversation and peel back those layers. And that, so going back to what do I really want now? What do I really want more of? And I think that's the key for me, is what do I want more of? Not what do I want or what do I not have? What do I want more of? 2022 is going to be about autonomy. Like, I want to be able to make more of those decisions for myself and not rely so much on other people to be like, all right, I want you to make the decisions so that I don't have to. Yes, that's nice sometimes, but I want to feel confident in my choices. And sometimes I just need that little bit of, give me multiple choices so that I know what options are on the table, and then I can confidently choose. Because going back to other conversations that we've had throughout the year, sometimes you don't know what's at play. Like, what do I have to choose from? How do I know what's out there if you don't give me some limitations, or no limitations at all? Tell me everything's on the table and then sky's the limit. But sometimes I do need a little bit of like the hand holding, I guess you could say, to like lead me in a certain direction, and then I can choose from there. But I still want that autonomy to decide for myself, and the freedom to do it without somebody then judging what I've done. So I think being able to, over time, gradually add to the conversation more and more by peeling back those layers has been really important.
Where do you think that's coming from, Chelle?
All that came up from you, Steena. So thank you.
That's so cool.
I love that. Where do I think that's coming from? Which part? The autonomy or the lack of it?
Yeah.
I think for so long, I would be confident in what I wanted to do, and then I'd butt heads with somebody of like, no, that you have to do it this way. You can't do it that way. This is how it is. This is how it's going to be, whether it was at home, whether it was in school, whether it was in corporate. And the more times that you present an idea and you do it confidently and you're like, no, this is what I want to do. This is the thing that I know is right for me. And you're challenged, you start to back down, or at least I did. How many times can I butt heads with somebody or many people and be told that I'm wrong in my decision? You stop trusting yourself. Yeah. And I trust myself. And I want other people to trust in themselves too. And the only way to do that is to start making those decisions for yourself. And it's really hard to remove yourself from needing that validation from other people.
Yeah. And for me, like, I was wondering where that was coming from for you, was the part in I believe it's in your book even, where you're being told to, go entertain your younger siblings, your brother and your sister, and go play with them. And like, why do I have to do that? Like, why do I have to take that on? Right? And yeah, it's interesting how things that happen when we're little.
And especially when you are somebody that is good at being by yourself.
Yeah.
Like I'm good with people, but I'm also really good alone. And I don't need to necessarily be around other people in order to thrive. I've been very independent in that way. Mm-hmm. So when the autonomy gets removed sometimes, when you're kind of forced to always be in a group of people or be the caretaker or the caregiver in a certain situation, or the teacher in a certain situation, you're just thrown and lumped in with other people that you don't necessarily want to always be around.
Right.
So I think it's the choosing too of when you do and don't put yourself with other people and allow other people to feed your opinions.
Yeah. And Steena, you said in Chelle's Human Design, I don't know if you recall, that she doesn't need even friends, right? There was something about Chelle's Human Design where she's fine with it, but it's not something that she needs.
I'd have to look again at her chart. But what you're saying is related to the single definition. Mm-hmm. So I know this isn't like a human design lesson, but right? That's where all of your defined centers are connected to each other. So you have one continuous flow of energy. Yeah. And in human design, that's an independent person who they're not going to be the one to compromise in a relationship. I mean, we'll make day-to-day, concessions, but we're not going to compromise who we are. We're not going to change. It's kind of like you get what you get. And so we don't really mind if that doesn't work for somebody, then it's like, okay, I'd rather be alone than be with somebody who my energy doesn't work for.
Yeah. Work with, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Dorrit, when you hear that question? What do you want?
Yeah, well, for the first almost 2/3 of my life, that was not a question that I even thought, what do I want? My focus was on everyone else. I had family, kids, dogs, work, and I made sure that everyone and everything was perfect for everyone around me. Every need they had, made it comfy, cozy, food, clothes, everything for everyone. So what I got was what they wanted for dinner, and a lot of times I wore hand-me-downs clothes just because I didn't set off money to go and shop for myself. So, but then I had a famous burnout crash, and after that I needed to find myself. And when I should start, when I tried to start to find out what I wanted, it was really difficult. Like Chelle mentioned, it's not easy to find out what do I want, what is my desire. And I actually had to learn how to meditate and how to listen to my heart and how to kind of recognize my own wants and needs in a way. Of course, I could want foods and I could see clothes that I wanted. It's not that, but it's what I wanted to spend my time doing, because I wasn't able to work anymore. And I decided that I wanted to spend my time with things that gave me joy and things that gave me pleasure. And I still want very much to make everything good for everyone around me, because that kind of gives me pleasure. But I'm not erasing myself in the process anymore like I did.
Right.
So I'm serving from a completely different level because I want to, not because I had to like before. So yeah, so for me to find out what I really want, I have to go into meditation. And if there is like, you can do this or you can do that, or a big questions come up like, do you want to do this job? Do you want to, in my case, buy this dog or something?
Yeah.
I'm actually going into meditation and blocking everything out and just listening to myself instead of getting all the disturbance, instead of asking someone, because that wouldn't be my decision. Then I would be affected by their opinion. So
yeah.
That's what comes up for me. Yeah.
There's an exercise like, what's your word for the year? And Chelle kind of alluded to the answer to that question of autonomy is more this year for her. For me, it's synergy. How about you, Dorrit? Is there a word that might be encompassing your year this year, or was there one last year that kind of encapsulated your year?
It's not something that I've thought about, so this is coming up now.
Yeah. Cool. Right from your
Fresh from the press. Togetherness is the word that I get up. So I think that now in this COVID world, we've been alone too much. I want to gather people. I want to spend time with family and friends, and I want to kind of interact more with the people I love. Yeah.
Nice. I love it. How about you, Steena? Is there a word that came up for kind of encapsulating last year, or something leading you this year?
Well, last year I said that I just wanted a boring year. So boring was my word. Really not so sure that worked
I don't think
so well for me, especially at the end of the year. We're going out with a bang. And I don't have a word, but when Dorrit she just said, she said, get up. And I heard up, and like that feeling of like getting up out of a chair, like raising up. And I was like, I like up. That sounds really nice. Like,
there you go.
It'd be really nice to just feel like things this year were moving up.
Nice. Yeah. Last year's a bit of a downer.
Just a little bit. December especially.
Your uppiness.
Oh man.
That's funny. Very cool. Dear Bear, how about you? You got anything?
My word is trust, which is trust me.
Yes.
A lot on my plate right now, as you all know. And for those of you listening in, there has to be a time where you ask the question to yourself, what do you really want? And I really want to trust myself, because in my experience, in my years, when I put full trust in my decisions or whatever it is I'm going to do, it doesn't only come true, it manifests. And
multiplies.
So this year, it's trust. And that's a biggie for me, because before I make a decision, I normally wait 3 days to make sure that decision is valid 3 days later. And sometimes it's not. So now I'm just going to use my word and move forward with the full understanding that life is what life is. Sometimes it's not going to work, but either way, I'm going to learn something to take with me down the road. So those are my words, and I'm sticking to them.
So as a projector, it's kind of about waiting a few days just to kind of solidify your decision. How do you see that, Steena, for projectors, the waiting?
They really like to be invited. So that helps them to make a decision. Like
right
when they get an invitation, they're like, it's a yes or no. Like it's either the invitation you've been waiting for, or it's not the invitation you've been waiting for.
There you go.
And I find this is true, I think, for all of the types in human design. I've heard it applied to specific types, but the more clear you are internally about what you want, the easier the decisions are in the moment. Because if it's kind of, I always think of those overhead, those clear overhead sheets that teachers used to write on. It's like if you could draw your desires on an overhead sheet and then walk around life with it in front of your face, like, oh, this fits, this fits what I want. That's kind of how we all can make our decisions a little bit easier, is when you are clear within yourself. You have that kind of, it can be a literal vision, or it could be an emotional feeling. It doesn't have to be like, I don't like the manifestation thing where you have to like write down every little detail, because that gets me too analytical. But it can just be a feeling. It can be an energy. It can be, whatever feels true to you, that like, yes, this is what I want. You can walk around with that little overhead picture, and then you get that feedback really quickly. This is either it or it's not it.
Yeah, and the word that comes up for me when you describe all that is filter. So using whatever that, like you said, it's not necessarily a word, it could be a feeling or whatever. You're now filtering your life with that clarity. And there's like core values and stuff. And sometimes people say your top 5, and Brene Brown says your top 3. And I've even taken my top 3 and moved them around, and that blew up in my face. So it's like your top 1, it's back to that, like the soul works in onesies. So number 1, if it's not fun, it's not going to really go anywhere for me, because fun, freedom, and love are my top 3. So yeah, I love that idea of filtering. Yeah, I love it. And even like what's the number one, for lack of better words, objective? Dorrit, you and I were talking about that the other day. You know, what was the number one objective? It's like, just see if this is working, see if people are coming, you know, then go ahead and, you know, advertise, which we did this last live. So yeah, filtering is so important. And I didn't learn that until much later in life. So yeah.
I think for me, if I just want to add in this one last thing.
Cool.
When it comes to filters, I immediately, as you guys were talking about this, I was thinking about pillars and anchors and like what keeps people grounded and the things that are important to them. My filter, my pillars and my anchors, I use the word anchor because, again, water related, people call them pillars. But when I filter, my filters change. So I always have to just triple check with myself and do a gut check of like, what am I filtering for in this moment? What makes the most sense right now?
Yep.
And then part of that triple check is like, did I make this decision for me, or did I make this based on somebody else pushing something on me? And again, that goes back to the autonomy, but it's true. It's like, is this what's best for me right now? Because my filter might change. I have a lot of different things that I'm always like doing, and that's part of like my multi-hyphenate, multi-potentialite, manifesting generator, all the words, self. Like I'm throwing them all out there, but it can change in any moment, and so I just always have to tap into who am I right now?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
that was a beautiful wrap up. Thank you, Chelle.
Mm-hmm. Who are you right now, and what do you really want?
Nummy.
You know, Steena, to go on what you said about projectors and their need for being invited, that is so spot on. You know, I'll be at a meeting or a conference or whatever, and many ideas and subjects are being bounced around, and I'll just sit there quietly. And everybody at the meeting who knows me knows that don't happen. So
that's when he gets his invites.
So then it's Ambassador Terry, what do you think? And then I tell him the correct response of what we should do. And everybody in the room goes, yeah, why didn't I think of that?
Yep. That's very projector. Yes.
Exactly.
Really
and yet
when he's been invited.
I could say the exact same words before somebody invited me, and nobody would listen. Nobody would even know I spoke. But when they invite me, I tell them what it is that they're searching for every single time. And boom, everybody in the room that's present goes, yeah, let's do it. You know?
It also works. I'll just add, it works also in reverse, I guess. So with projectors, they also like to extend invitations. So it's the energy of inviting someone in is different than asking them to make a decision, or like it's a certain, when you send an invitation to a birthday, it's like, this is happening. Would you like to be a part of it? Like, to me, that's what an invitation is. This conversation is happening. We're inviting you to be a part of it. Not so much like, do you want to do this with me? Right? It's a very like the projector. I don't know. This is a wise, confident energy. This is what's happening. Would you like to come along and be a part of it with us?
Nice. Ooh, that's so important too.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Good to remember.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. This has been another great conversation.
Mm-hmm. High Vibe Conversation, end of the year special. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I love doing that. That's just so much fun. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye.